This episode of Muddy River Gems is brought to you by Dot Foods.
I think what it comes down to is the culture and the people.
Our culture here at Dot is like no other. I've never experienced anything like what I've lived with for the last 12 years.
Dot is very diverse.
It is truly a family-owned business, but it is a family inside and out.
You always feel like you matter and you play a big hand in the pot.
There's so many opportunities to make a difference at Dot and really contribute to the success of the organization.
Whiskey may not be your thing, but even if it's not, I think the process of making it you'll find very interesting on this edition of Muddy River Gems, brought to you by Dot Foods. Andy, Sweetwater Distillery. How long have you been in business?
Almost 4 years, May 15th.
Right? Okay, now making whiskey, that's a time consuming, it takes a long time. People say, well, you must be really optimistic because you're gonna have to take years to make whiskey, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
Tell me about your first batch.
So my first batch, I had my kid come, my boy and my daughter, and I made him go with me to go get the grain out of the grain bin, and I made him hand scoop all this. We hand scooped all of the grain. Back then, that's what we did because we didn't have an auger or nothing, so we had to actually hand scoop 750 pounds, and we had to do that 4 times.
And you wanted him to be part of that process,
That's
right?
right, yeah.
In your maiden voyage is what it was.
That's right, yeah.
How'd the first batch come out? Were you happy with it?
I haven't even tried it.
You
haven't
had it yet.
No.
Huh? But you are drinking some of your whiskey, right?
So yeah, and it is actually, it's all the same. All the batches are going to be, now they will vary from barrel to barrel because of the barrel itself, but the mash bill and everything is all identical. Yeah. So we do know what it's going to be like because we're already harvesting some of the barrels. But the first barrel I did, I'm not going to touch that till my boy turns 21.
Okay, you want that to be aged just right, huh?
21. Okay. When he's 21 years old, I'll make him go out there, pull it all out, and he's going to bottle everything.
Oh, that's going to be a hoot. Show us your products. Can you bring them down off the wall for us?
I sure can. So the first products that we made, I'll do them kind of in order. So the first product that we made was our regular yellow corn whiskey. It's just a double distilled clear whiskey, and it's got 95% corn in it. It's got 4% barley and 1% rye.
Oh, you do mix grains sometimes, huh? Or always?
Yes. For like making whiskeys, we do want a few different products or a few different things in it to create different complex flavors to it.
Okay.
Then the next thing we made was our yellow corn vodka. And all that is just 100% yellow corn. Takes 750 pounds of grain, 250 gallons of water. And you cut the moisture content out, you're looking at about 650 pounds of grain. So that's what it takes in a mash bill. It takes me 6 of them to be able to cast out 1,000 bottles.
Wow. Where do you get your yellow corn?
We get that from Heather's mom and dad.
That's your wife?
Yep.
And they grow the corn and you buy from them?
Yeah.
Or they give it to you?
Yeah, they mainly give it to me. I try to buy it, but
that's great, a family business.
They don't really want to take my money for it, which, for what we use, it's not a whole bunch of grain. So, but then the next products that we got here are, we made, trying to keep them in order. All right, so next was our clear Jimmy Red. So this is how we kind of knew what the bourbon was going to taste like without the age on it, because this is our Jimmy Red that we wanted to cast into the barrels.
How old is this one?
This is all just young stuff. This is
a year or so.
This has no age at all on it.
Okay.
So it's 600 pounds of Jimmy Red, 200 pounds of wheat, and 40 pounds of barley. And then after that, we decided to make a Jimmy Red vodka, which is the same as the yellow corn, besides it's a red corn. We thought, you know what, nobody's making a Jimmy Red vodka. Most people would think we're crazy because it's kind of an expensive corn to buy. But since Todd Hayes and Donnie Hayes, just down the road, grow it for us.
And they're local, and,
Yep,
and
local.
this is a sample of it, right?
Yeah.
This is what it looks like.
This is what it looks like on the ear, and this is what it looks like when I get it from him.
You get it from him like this, and then you have to grind this, or what do you call
Yeah.
it? It's,
Yep.
you don't call
We
it
grind it. Yeah, we grind
Okay.
it in the still. And then so far we've got the yellow corn, we've got yellow corn whiskey, the yellow corn vodka, the Jimmy Red whiskey,
Red, okay.
the Jimmy Red vodka, and then this is our just a 1 year age on our Jimmy Red bourbon, which we're about done with this. We're in the 2 year.
So it's the aging that gives it the color.
The
Is that
aging is
right?
what the
Okay.
barrel being charred is where the
All
color
right, so
comes
this one
from.
over here is not aged, so it's clear. This one is aged, and it's got color.
That's right.
And
Same.
the older it gets, the darker it'll get. Is that probably true?
Yeah, it will. And so this is all double distilled. So when I say double distilled, to me, a double distilled, whenever you run something for its first time, most people will go ahead and drink it. I think it's more drinkable if you double distill. And the way we do our distillation, we don't strip the heads and the hearts and the tails on the first distillation. We just take it all on the low wine run. And then when we go back and put it in the still, that's where we'll separate the heads, the hearts, and the tails, because now we have a higher concentration of the heads, and we have a higher concentration of the hearts, and we have a higher concentration of the tails. So it's just easier to depict what is. But yes, this is our bourbon. Turned out very, very well. We only do a cask strength, 124, uncut, unfiltered.
Now, during this program, this is going to be very, very educational for some people like me who don't know anything about making whiskey. But we're going to go back into your distillery room here next. But we're also going to see you also have some kind of an enclosure where you keep your barrels, right? Where the whiskey's aging.
Yeah.
And you also have a grain barrel, right? And we're going to go see those where you keep your rye and your malt or whatever
I'll show you
whatever
the whole
you use, the whole deal.
process.
But first, let's go back here because the first thing you do is you grind up the corn and make a mash out of it, right?
Yes.
And then
yes.
let's go back and see that process.
Okay.
Andy, we saw a sample of the grain, okay, which was the red, what's it called?
Jimmy Red.
Jimmy Red. Okay, we saw a sample of that. And so you get it, it's already whole kernel corn, but you do something with that. You can't just soak whole kernel corn.
That's right.
Okay,
Yeah.
how do you grind it up?
So what we use is right now, we used to use an old grinder from the 40s, and it works amazing, done in 25 minutes.
It's huge though.
It is. It was nice. But right now, we've been using this Ukrainian grinder, and this is what I actually started out with. The thing I like about it is it actually pulverizes that corn very, very fine. And the more that we pulverize it, it creates, makes it easier for to convert the starches into sugar. It's, it's breaking it up a lot finer.
Yeah.
It's exposing starches a lot better.
Okay.
So we use the old Ukrainian grinder, and I just put a ferrule on the bottom of it, and then we just mount that to the still, and we just start pouring the grain in. It is very, very slow.
Well, that's nice because if you mount it to the still, that means it's one process.
Yeah.
It goes right in. You don't have
Yep.
to. Okay. All right.
That's right. And so it takes me 2.5 hours to grind. We mount it right here, and this is the clamp for it. But it takes me about 2.5 hours per mash. Now, it sucks to do that, but it stops me from hand scooping grain that's already ground in big trash cans to go into that hole. So it's got its pros and its cons. I do like it. I don't mind 2.5 hours. It's not too bad. I'm already here.
Now, where are we in the process here?
So this one here is about, I'm going to say it is 3 days in, maybe 4.
And this is your ground Jimmy Red, is that right? That's what this is. Okay.
So this mash is I'm pretty sure it's about 4 days in. I can look on the book, but anyways, I'm just going to guess it is. This mash is just about done. I will be running this mash Oh, 2 more days. I'm gonna run
What
it.
do you do? Filter the sediment off the top, and you end up with what? Colored
Nope.
water?
So what we'll do is we will mix this up. I'll take this shovel and I'll stir all this up. We'll pump everything into the still, even to the point where I'll take a garden hose and I'll wash this all down.
You want it all?
I want everything to go with us.
Okay, all right.
And so the only thing that you're seeing here, what's left over after you squeeze it out, is really just the hard kernel, and I'm guessing the endosperm is what this is, the inner part of the corn. But all your starches, that's what all these little white things are. And so all the starches have almost been converted into a sugar. And that's what's going on right now. It's just finishing up.
And it's just water and Jimmy Red, right?
This is the only thing that I put in my mashes. I don't even adjust pH. A lot of people do, and I don't. I might be wrong for not, but I prefer to not do anything to my mash. I put water, Jimmy Red with some enzyme to convert starches to sugar, and then we use a yeast that I buy from Firm Solutions, right, Heather? I think that's the name of it. Firm Solutions out of Louisville, Kentucky. And that's it.
Yeah.
That's all we do to it. We don't do any citric acid, change pH.
It gets pretty hot. It gets pretty hot while it's aging, or while it's what, 4 days? You say 4 days old, and it gets pretty warm.
Yeah.
It creates a lot of friction in there, I guess.
And this guy is actually kind of cooled down. That one over there is definitely heated up because it's only on its first 24 hours right now.
Can we look in here? Can you remove that top of that?
Yeah. Yep. We can take her off there and check her out.
You built these containers, didn't you? You're a welder, and you built them.
Yeah.
That's another way to save money.
We made it
Build
all
your own
happen.
stuff.
So this mash is very, very active right now.
Oh, it's really hot. I got my hand on the bottom of it. You get any idea how hot this is?
100 degrees.
100, yeah. Oh, wow.
And so this, you can see the mash is actually
It's bubbling.
moving and rolling and bubbling, and a lot's going on.
Yeah. Now, will this be the next stopping point for this? Is the still? Is that
We'll be
right?
back in the still. That's right.
What's that? Is that an
Just the
area?
way. So whenever I cook the mash and all that, whenever this has been treated as what I would call a mash tun, once it's heated and the grains have converted starches into a sugar, the first stage of it, I'll put it in here, and then we'll crash cool this down to about 120 degrees, and that's where I add my glucose enzyme in it. And once we add the glucose, I'll let this thing sit till the next morning, and then I'll add my yeast to it. And then
How long do the yeast goes in for how long before you put it in the still?
I would say 6 days.
Okay.
I would say 6 days for the most
And it's
part.
cooling off all that time, right?
Yes, it is. It's cooling off. Well, it's going to start producing less and less. You know, for the first day, it's going to eat a lot of sugar. It's going to create a lot of heat. Tomorrow, it's going to do the same thing, but it's going to slowly start slowing down, just like those two over there. And then they will get cold, and they'll stop fermenting. Is what's going to end up happening.
Okay, so they stop fermenting. Then it's time to put them in the still.
Yep.
And what happened? Well, I'll tell you what. You can actually get up there and show us. That
I'll
process,
take and
can't
I'll
you? Okay.
show you how it all works.
And you built the stills too, didn't you?
Yep, we built the stills from scratch.
Those are beautiful. Those are really beautiful.
Thank you.
It's an expensive business to get
You know,
in.
I don't know of very many people that have built their stills, and I don't know many here in the state of Missouri, if any have. So, once this mash is ready to go, any of them, I'll take and hook my pumps up. My hoses are on the wall right there. I always keep them hung up so that water doesn't sit in them. We don't want no bacteria or anything bad.
All right.
But once it's ready, I will hook the hose up to the bottom of this tank down here to the pump, and the pump I'll hook up to this top hole right here. And we'll fill this up all the way, and then I will start my steam boiler from in the corner of the room.
Okay, this is your steam boiler here?
Yep.
Okay.
So we'll use that, and we'll start slowly bringing the temp up. And once we get up to, on a stripping run, when we get to about 200 degrees, 200 degrees is about where this, 190 to 200 this thing will start producing liquor. We'll start putting something out the end of it. Now what's coming out is going to be your heads, your hearts, and your tails through this whole run. But we won't separate that. We'll wait till the finishing run to separate it. So that's called a stripping run. If I'm doing vodka, we will take that stripping run and go straight to that still over there to the right.
That's your
my
vodka still. Okay.
If we're going to make a bourbon or a whiskey or anything under the 160 range, we're going to take all of the liquid that comes out of this stripping run, put it in that white tank over there until we fill it up, and then we're going to bring it back. And then we'll put it back in the still, and we'll rerun. We always do a double distillation. There's nothing in here we don't do a double distillation.
What's with the windows?
So inside of these is a copper plate. And what happens is the steam vapors roll up through here and it hits the deflator. The deflator will create a rainback effect because I'm actually driving a water around a bunch of tubes. And those tubes, I just run county water. So the water comes in cold, but I can slow the water flow through it. By doing that, I can get this thing to get up to 170 plus degrees. And by doing that is where I'm going to start shedding water vapor. So as the water vapor falls back down and hits the first column, it will fill up to about 1/4 inch. And once it does that, there's a drain back tube in there. We call it a downcomer, but it's just like what your palm would have for like an overflow when it gets to a certain level. So once it hits 1/4 inch, anything other than that rolls down the downcomer, goes to the next piece, and it keeps doing that until it gets back to the kettle, and it gives it another chance to run again.
So that gives you a chance just to keep an eye on what's going on in there?
That's right. All of the sight glasses is for me to be able to monitor if this still is turned up too much, because they really only run off of a fraction of a pound. They don't run off very much pressure at all.
What's that gauge that's flashing there? What does that do?
So this is my agitator. So it's I think it's a VFD drive, a variable, a VSD drive. It's a variable speed drive. And what it does is it controls my agitator on how fast I operate it. And it all depends on what I'm running. If I'm running a mash or if I'm making a mash, I will run the agitator at a different speed. I get better results. But that's what that is. This is just the way to control the agitator. And then on the side of it, this little white box is so that I can program how many gallons of water I want to put in the still. Because to get our sugar bricks correct, we got to make sure we get the right amount of water in here.
Is that agitating all the time that you're using the still?
Yes, it's nonstop. If I have...
Was there a paddle in there or something?
Yeah, there's a 17-inch paddle. It's got 3 ends on it. But if I'm running any heat with grain in there, it's got to be on to keep it from scorching to the sidewalls, because everything's a steam jacket. So this is the inner tank wall, and then there's a steam jacket, and then there's 2 inches of Innswool insulation, and then I've got an outer skin on there, and this is what I call a cape or a beauty ring or whatever you want to say. But this is cool to the touch, and the idea for that is to keep the room from getting too hot and to be able to make this as efficient as possible for when I'm distilling. Everything I do is ran off of a globe valve, so how I drop steam in the still is all by turning this knob back here.
Okay. Got one more question for you while you're up there.
Yeah.
What's going on here? This looks like are you draining water off the still here, or where's
So what's going on here is I've got 800 foot of PEX line, and then I have 100 foot in between that 800 foot loop of copper. And what I'm doing is the line is out in the pond, and it's just a closed loop. And all I'm doing is I'm circulating. This is the hot water side, and this would be the cold water side coming in. So what happens is the water goes through 800, 900 foot of line, drops back in. This is the cold tank. Now in the cold tank, there's this stainless line in the bottom. What this line does is it feeds that pump, or it goes back behind this tank, runs over there, and there's another one of them pumps. And what it does is it either is chilling this tank, or it's chilling both condensers on the still.
It's a cooling system.
It's a cooling system.
Okay.
And so once it has used the water and soaked up a bunch of energy, of heat, it's going to roll back through this line here, and it's going to drop back in on this hot side. Now, when it goes into the hot side tank, that's why I've got separation. I don't want the hot tank making the cold tank,
Right.
fighting itself.
Yeah.
So once it falls into this tank here, it runs down into that pump, goes and pumps out this red line here, goes out in the pond, runs 900 feet, comes back
Cools
in
off.
nice and cold again.
Okay.
So that is how all of this works. If you don't have, building stills and all that is no problem, but you got to have a good way to shed heat. And it's got to be efficient. It can't be expensive. You don't want to spend 60 grand on a chiller or anything like that. So the pond cost me $1,500-1,600 bucks, to be able to run it this way.
Yeah.
Did not know if it was going to work or not.
It did, though. It does work, doesn't it?
It works great.
Yeah.
Works
Yeah.
really good.
Even in the summer.
Even in the summer.
Yeah. We'll be back with more from Sweetwater Distillery after this.
From our trucks to their lunch trays, to your local hospital, to your favorite pub, and to your kitchen table. For more than 60 years, Dot Foods and Dot Transportation have been stocking the shelves of your hometown. Sure, we've grown a lot, but at our core, we're still small-town, family-run businesses that care about our communities and the people who keep us running. Join the Dot family today and be part of something bigger.
Why work at Dot?
You could list out individual qualities forever.
There's a lot of opportunities. They take care of the employees, they take care of the community.
So our pay, our benefits, it's competitive. Time off, tons of flexibility.
They're willing to work with you to help you advance.
Okay, Andy, so double distilled, so it comes from the distillery into a tank, back to the distillery to be double distilled.
Yep.
Then you're going to clean this out.
Yeah.
When this mash is done, you're going to clean this out, and it goes from the distillery into here. Is that right?
That's right. So I'm going to take it from the still. This will already be gone because all these mashes will be ran and gone out of here.
Yeah.
So I'll clean this tank all the way out, take the valve out, clean all that. We'll bring this over and set it on the floor there. And then I will put all of the good high wine, is what we call them, high wines, into here. I'll get about 120 some gallons of 150-ish. And then we will add spring water, which I get from a well by the Mark Twain Lake from a friend's house that I used to use whenever I used to run liquor back in the day. I still use the same water. And so we'll use that water to cut it down, and we'll get a little over 150 some gallons, almost 170-ish. And then we'll fill 3 barrels. Is what
This will fill 3 barrels.
Yeah,
Okay.
once I get it all proofed down, we'll have 160, a little over 160 gallons. And then we'll
okay.
fill 3 barrels with it.
Okay, all
And
right.
I'll do
And
a 1 year,
just
a
get a
2 year,
hose.
and a
Just
3.
take a hose and just put it in the barrel. And
Yeah, so what I'll do is I'll grab the same pump that I would pump the mash with. We'll take that. I'll take that hose, and I got an end that I can neck down that fits right into that hole
Perfect.
right there, and I can fill them right up.
And then you roll that barrel along with the other ones out to your barrel house.
I'll kick those things out the door, and we'll take them out there.
Just roll them out.
Yep. And then we'll get out there, and then I'll get them inside the grain bin, and then we'll start chain hoisting them.
Yeah.
And then we'll start stacking them up.
Well, let's go take a look at the barrels, okay?
Yeah. Let's go check them out.
Okay, what do we call this? This is the barrel house, Andy?
So this for me is what I would call a barrel bin.
Barrel bin.
But yes, it is. It's my form of a barrel house, and since I'm a small distillery, this is plenty big enough areas for me to be able to store bourbon.
Yeah,
inside.
and you can always put up another one if you need to,
That's right. That's the
Can
idea.
you stack these barrels as high as they'll go?
Yeah. I mean,
They're strong enough, huh?
I'll be fine to stack these up 3 and 4 high. But yeah, they should be fine.
You know, I enjoy that. This tells you what you made, when you made it, and when you can pull it out. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay, so everyone's marked a little differently because some are 1 year, 2 year, 3 year.
Yeah. So right now we're doing 1 year, 2 year, and 3 year. But the idea is eventually to get away from the 1 years, and we're almost at that stage.
There's 2, and you do have some 3 years, right?
That's right. Okay. Yeah, we even got some 3 years down here on the bottoms. And we'll start hard. Once we get past 1 year, we're going to try to just do 2 and 3s and try to get into 4s.
Yeah.
You know,
and God willing, 6, 7, 8, and
that's the idea.
And your son, right? I mean, he's going to have one that's how old when he's
21.
Yeah.
When he's 21 years old, it'll be I think 17 years old.
17 year bourbon.
And that barrel actually, I was trying to find out where that
better be on the bottom.
It's no, that's barrel number 2. But anyways, it's one of these. It's here. There it is, right there.
That's your son's barrel.
Yep, that's Solix's right
he's
there.
21 years old. You guys are going to have a lot of fun with that whiskey.
That's right. Yeah, it's going to be neat to be able to harvest that barrel. And it'll be here for you know it.
Okay. Okay, there's one other place I want to see. You've got another bin similar to this where you keep your grain, right?
Yep.
Let's take a look at that.
Okay.
After you. Andy, we mentioned earlier in the program that you mix grains with when you're making a bourbon.
Yeah.
You might mix rye, and you might mix barley, and you might mix corn, and you keep it all in here. These are. Does it matter how cold this grain gets, or how hot it gets, or is it just okay to store?
No, the grain doesn't stay here long enough. I mean, we go through it pretty regularly. But
what are we looking at here? What
we got over here is this tote here is barley. This one here is wheat. This one here is barley. And that one over there is rye. And I'm getting ready to start making some rye whiskey. So we're getting ready to use that one up. But that's what this room is. It's just a dry room so that we can store grain. And, you know, I'm finding out grain bins are a very cheap way for me to be able to store stuff like this. So that's why you see grain bin here, grain bin over there.
On your scale of expenses, is grain your most expensive
I'd say
product?
bottles. I think the bottling part of it's probably about the most expensive. The grains aren't too bad. Not bad at all.
Well, Heather, did you ever think that you'd be a partner in a distillery?
No, never did.
You grew up around here, right?
Yep, born and raised.
And your parents are farmers, is that right?
Yep, just 7 miles north of here.
I think we mentioned earlier that you buy much of your corn from your parents, or they give it to you, one or the other.
Yep,
right?
they, mom and dad, they grow it just on the farm that I grew up on my whole life.
Yep.
And so we go get it out of the grain bin and hand scoop it and bring it back and grind it.
You have probably learned a ton about making whiskey. Do you get any pleasure out of it? Do you enjoy it?
Oh my gosh, it's so much fun. So growing up in the agricultural side of the world, showing cattle and growing up on a farm, and I never dreamed having a distillery how much that they would be the same. Hands-on and getting to still be part of having grains in your life and utilizing them. Grinding our own grain. I don't just stand behind the bar and make drinks. A lot of people will be like, oh, you just serve cocktails. No, there's a lot more to it.
Your husband Andy right now is in the process of making a drink you all are pretty proud of, the old fashioned, and so we're just going to show a little work he's doing. But in the meantime, I mean, I imagine you both put in a ton of hours to this operation because you don't have a lot of employees, right? You kind of got to do it yourself.
Yep, 7 days a week. We're blessed between the two of us. We take time. One of us will leave for, and go do what we need to do and come and go as we kind of please. But it's us 7 days a week, and but we love it and wouldn't have it any other way.
You're open every day. You open at noon, and like we're here on a Wednesday, and probably around noon somebody will come in and want to taste something. Right?
Yep. We do free samples and free tours, so we constantly have people coming in, get a cocktail, grab a pizza, grab bottles for sale. It's the continue of support that we have is very nice.
Well, you're becoming like a destination because The way you've got this place set up, I mean, you've got outdoor seating and you've got parking real close by. If it's too cold, you've got this indoor tasting room, which is terrific. And you've become a place on weekends, I guess, haven't you, mostly?
Yeah. So
there's that look at that. Isn't that beautiful?
That is our signature old fashioned. We make our own old fashioned mix. That is with our 124 proof Jimmy Red bourbon. But we also make an old fashioned mix that's right here that we sell. So it is our own recipe that we use for our signature.
Do you
cocktail.
mind? I may just take a little taste here.
Enjoy.
That tastes like what I've been smelling in that bond room. It does. It's delicious. It's delicious, nice and sweet.
It's nice. We, being such a rural business, there's 6,000 to 8,000 people go up and down our highway a day that we target. We have 2 million people that target our lake March 1st to November 1st. So
yeah, we're close to Mark Twain Lake.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
So it's nice being a rural business.
Yeah. Well, listen, thanks for you and your husband for letting us come in and take a look at it. I think the people that watch this are going to be very impressed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
The only distillery in Northeast Missouri opens every day at noon. With another edition of Muddy River Gems, brought to you by Dot Foods, I'm Mark McDonald.
This episode of Muddy River Gems was brought to you by Dot Foods.